I ultimately made my neighbor pay a staggering $437,000, bankrupted her, and then bought her house, and it all started with her hatred for our family's peach trees. To understand the whole story, we have to go back a few years. My great-grandparents planted an orchard that, today, is at least 120 years old. My grandparents and parents took immense pride in it, especially the peach trees, and they did everything to keep them healthy. Every year, when the peaches were ready for harvest, we'd throw a huge party and invite all our friends and neighbors. I absolutely loved those parties. The neighbors to the south of our orchard were particularly fond of our peaches. They were a wonderful elderly couple, and the old man, Arthur, became a good friend of mine. He taught me a great deal about woodworking using only hand tools, and we spent many great evenings in his workshop, finishing more than a few good whiskeys together. In exchange, he received all the fine peaches, marmalade, and homemade peach liqueur he could want. Sadly, Arthur passed away about 10 years ago from cancer. His wife followed him soon after. Many said it was from a broken heart. They had no children, so their property was left to the state, except for his tools and whiskey collection, which he had gifted to me a few weeks before he died. Then came Carol. The name probably gives you a picture. The haircut, the attitude, the whole package. She bought the property from the state. We couldn't afford it at the time. We had hit some dire straits in the preceding years and our savings were completely gone. The very first thing Carol did, even before she officially moved in, was to march around to all the surrounding neighbors making demands. When she finally got to us, she declared that we needed to remove half of our trees because their leaves were blowing onto her property. We politely informed her that we would not be doing that. We explained that the orchard was a vital part of our family's heritage and had been standing for over a century. She was furious but didn't do anything else, for the moment. Now, there are a few important details you need to know. Arthur's old workshop was situated right on the border with our property. It was a small, timber-framed building, somewhere between 160 and 180 years old. In my state, the regulations concerning old structures are incredibly strict. Any building over 100 years old is protected, and you need a special permit to tear it down. Failing to get that permission results in a hefty fine. Furthermore, to build anything new, you have to get permission from your direct neighbors. And in my county specifically, there's a rule that you must maintain a certain distance from the property line to allow full access for emergency services. If any one of these requirements isn't met, a building can be declared illegal and a court can order it to be torn down. That detail would become very important later. After our first encounter, Carol made it her mission to torment the entire neighborhood. She got a neighbor's dog put down, claiming it attacked her child. It was later revealed she had faked the attack. The dog was a sweet Bernese Mountain Dog, a true gentle giant. She then turned her attention back to us, managing to stop our annual peach parties by calling the police every single time for ridiculous reasons. She'd file noise complaints about the band we had playing in the afternoon. She'd claim arson when we lit a fire in our designated fire pit. She even called the ATF on us, alleging we were making moonshine, even though my dad had a license to distill for our own consumption. After 3 years of dealing with law enforcement every time we tried to celebrate, we gave up. The parties stopped. With that victory secured, she returned to her original demand, get rid of the orchard. We refused to cave. Then things got ugly. Our truck tires were slashed. Eggs were thrown at our farmhouse. Our cat vanished, only to reappear a few days later in terrible shape. It looked like someone had tried to cut his tail off. He healed completely, but we could never prove she was behind it. Then came the day she made her biggest mistake. She tore down the old workshop in a single night, a covert operation with a hired crew. In its place, she immediately began constructing a massive garage and recreational building. She tore down the old workshop, utterly convinced of her own cleverness, completely unaware that in her haste, she wasn't just demolishing a building, she was digging her own financial grave. She missed a few key details. She never asked for our permission, or any of the other neighbors. Shortly after, the trees right next to her property began to get sick. Their leaves turned brown in the middle of summer, and entire branches started to die. We lost 4 trees before we discovered the cause. Someone had driven long copper nails deep into their trunks. We knew who it was, but we had no proof, so we put up trail cameras on our property, which was perfectly legal. We caught her red-handed. My dad, being the excessively nice guy he is, confronted her. She apologized, and he was ready to let the whole thing go, but I wasn't. As one commenter later noted, what she did to the pets alone deserved far worse than just a scolding. This is where Carol made her fatal miscalculation. She assumed my father's kindness was a weakness shared by our entire family. She failed to see that while my father had a soft heart, I had a memory of steel and a thirst for justice. The nail she drove into our oldest, most cherished tree was the final nail in her coffin. I started to dig. I had friends at the county administration office and asked them to make some inquiries. It turned out Carol had never applied for a permit to tear down the old shop, nor had she applied for a permit to build her new monstrosity. I then did some research on our property line. The old survey markers had vanished over time, and a new survey revealed her new building was sitting about 3 feet onto our property. I gathered all this information and presented it to my parents. At first, they were reluctant, not wanting to escalate a neighborhood war, but I reminded them of everything she had done, the harassment, the lies, the animal she hurt, and now the attack on the orchard itself. They were in. First, we reported her to the authorities for tearing down a protected building, providing them with all our evidence. Then, we reported her to the building authorities for constructing an illegal building without a permit. That wasn't up to code, and that was built on our land. The fallout was swift and devastating for her. It turned out the workshop wasn't just protected because of its age. It was a designated historical landmark that played a role in a conflict back in the 1860s. For destroying it, she was sued and fined the equivalent of $150,000. For the illegal construction, she was fined another $83,000. She was also ordered to demolish her brand new building, at a cost of $50,000, and then rebuild the historic workshop on her own dime. This is where her fate was truly sealed. The rebuild had to be period correct down to the smallest detail, meaning it had to be constructed with the correct materials and with hand tools only. As one person later pointed out online, it's not just about paying professionals to do this. The real challenge is even finding them. A highly competent modern builder wouldn't have the first clue how to use tools from the 1800s to construct a large timber-framed building. The cost was astronomical, another $154,000. All told, her vendetta against our peach trees cost her $437,000, not including lawyers' fees. The financial blow was too much. She went bankrupt and was forced to sell the property, and, in a final act of justice, my parents bought it. The last I ever heard of Carol, she had moved back to the big city, hopefully far away from any old trees. This story is a stark reminder that heritage has deep roots, and trampling on someone's history and kindness can lead to you losing everything you own. It's startling how many people think they can move into a community and just bend it to their will, instead of becoming a part of it. She could have had new friends and all the free peaches she wanted. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have stopped at getting an apology, or would you have sought complete and total justice?